All right, today we're going to continue on with the section that you guys started on Friday. On Friday we were starting section 5.1 because we were done with testing. So on section 5.1, we're going to mix this with a little bit of 5.2 as well today. And that was something that on the video that I provided you guys, it did have both mixed together. So we're dealing with ratios and proportions.
Like 5 to 2.
And proportions, yep. Proportions. So we were talking about on a ratio, like we talked about the definition of what a ratio is. It's just a fraction, right? It's comparing two numbers. The big thing is, I want to talk about the forms of a ratio. Because everyone knows a ratio is just two numbers compared using division. But I want to talk about the different forms. Let's do that example first. So the different forms you should have up till this point of what a ratio is. The main one that everyone always thinks about is fraction form. Okay, can you write something down as a fraction? Okay, so that could be something as 2 over 5, 2 to 5. That was the two numbers I heard earlier. Right, 2/5. You can write it in a couple different ways. You can write it, with a little bar. You can write it with a little backslash. Those mean the same thing to me. This is probably something you see in like a Microsoft Word on a test. They might type it like that. Usually I try to always go the vertical route. It's just easier to look at. But that's a fraction, right? It's comparing two numbers, top and bottom. The top is called the numerator. Bottom is the denominator. Now they do have different words. If you're going to actually long divide, you'd have divisor and dividend in no particular order. But those are like the main key words that they want you to discuss. That's fraction form. Now, the other forms we had from the last week, we had word form. That was the second form that I gave you last week. Word form is when they do this. 2 to 5. 2 to 5. Right? It means the same thing as this. The first number goes on the top, second number goes on the bottom of a fraction. It's just in words. Sometimes they use the word per, 2 per 5. I think I've even seen the word 2, 4, 5. Something like that. Where we'd see word form is like in a grocery store when they say 2 bottles of pop for $3. They do a lot of sales on Monster. I know we talked about Monster Energy drinks last week, right? It's like 2 for $4 or something like that. That's a sale. That's in word form. It's a ratio. Okay. Now the third method is when they use a colon. Colon, right? Colon is this. And I think on the video, I think I talked about like the clock. The clock is in that form, right? Now a clock would show the numbers like this. They might actually put the digital form would be something more like this. That's probably what it would put on a clock, or maybe leave it here out front, like 2:05 p.m. or whatever that is. That's a colon. That's a ratio. It's a comparison of two numbers. Now the numbers don't even have to be the same scale, the same. Like on a clock, it's 2 hours, 5 minutes. Right? There's two different labels. That'd be really weird. I don't even know if they make a clock where it just shows minutes in a day.
They don't.
Like they would have a 24-hour clock. I don't know if a digital, but that's still
They do
hours
have a
and minutes.
24-hour clock.
So yeah, they have a 24-hour, but I don't know if they ever just put a day in terms of minutes. I've never seen a clock that does that. Like out of a day, 24 hours or 60 minutes in a.
You'd have to go 120 clock.
Yeah, it'd be big. Yeah, it'd be huge.
It'd be
It'd be kind of a weird style. But anyways, these are the different forms. The goal today, other than looking at these forms, is to look at how to simplify them. So that's what we're going to look at today. Can we simplify a ratio? And this is something that you've actually done before, and you guys are actually really good at before. We've done this a long time ago. It was like chapter 2 or chapter 2. It was like back in September. So it was a while ago.
Wait, chapter what?
Chapter 2. Way back in the day. So we're talking about, it was a long time ago. But I want to talk about how to simplify, and then the last part is I want to talk about how to do a proportion today. Two different ways of proportion. You've seen proportions also in chapter 2. Hey.
Can we ask Eric Lupin a question very fast?
Sure.
Of the 2017-2018 school year, have you or will you participate in any school orchestrated sports?
Vocal.
Vocal? Is that all?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. Doing a stats project.
Okay. Alright. Alright. Anyway, that was weird. There must be doing surveys. Okay. But these are my my different proportions, right? These are the different ways that we probably use it. And I think on the video we talked about things that we use proportions for and things you cannot use it for. I think on the video we talked about time and temp you can't use it for. But we can do it for scaling a recipe. I think in this class we even talked about like a bicycle. I think we talked about bicycles once. I think I even did an example of like changing the size of the tire on my car. We talked about that. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I remember back to that. But this is kind of our goal today. Can we do this effectively? Okay. Questions with the different words and what we're going to be talking about today?
No.
Perfect. Okay. Now let's do an example or two. All right. Okay. Let's do our first example. Let's talk about ratios and how to simplify them. So we're going to talk about a ratio,
Simplify.
and we're going to talk about how to simplify it.
Is it basically how you simplify a fraction?
Yeah, it's the same exact idea. So we're going to be simplifying it. It is the same rules for fraction because a ratio is a fraction. So let's say we had 18 over 24. And that's my ratio, correct? Okay, this is where you would want to use a multiplication chart. Okay, so let me hand these out. Okay, so Eric, you're going to have the bottom number. Sam, you're going to have the top number. Okay? Okay. So on the top number here, Sam, give me any two numbers from a multiplication chart that multiply to give me 18, and try not to use 1 and 18. So use any other two numbers that multiply to give me 18.
3 and 6.
3 and 6, okay. 3 times 6. Perfect, I like it. All right. Eric, give me any two numbers on your property sheet that multiply to give you 24.
6 and 4.
6 and 4, okay. 6 and 4. 4 times 6.
You're lucky I don't feel like saying it right now.
Are you sure you're not gonna like it?
Okay.
Okay.
So try to break down the 15 and 20 as far as you can. Papers, ruler. All right. So, Eric, give me the first numbers. How do you break down 15?
3 and 5.
Perfect. 3 and 5. Sam, how do you break down 20?
4 times 5.
4 times 5? Perfect. Now, I know you can break down the 4 even further, correct? We technically won't need to, but we'll keep breaking down. So, Sam, did you break down the 4 even further?
You should have.
The 4, so that'll be 2 and
2 and 2. Okay. 2 and 2, and then we have the 5 that was already down there. So that's breaking down that 4 into this, right? So every number is accounted for. I'm not losing any numbers. I'm not missing any. Then we cross out numbers they have in common. So this will explain what I was just talking about a little bit ago. One number cancels out top and bottom.
5.
The 5s. The 5s are gone because that's the number they had in common. I recognized that earlier, right here. Like I recognized it right in the first line of the numbers you guys picked. I noticed they had 5s going. I could have crossed them out there. But anyways, I had the 3 left and then the 4s left in the top. These numbers are the same. Now, if those are the same, what can you tell me about the problems on the board? The 2 problems I gave you on the board. I want you to look at both problems I've made up today.
Both have 2s in them.
Yeah, but look at what they both simplified into.
3/4.
3/4. All those fractions on the board today that I've circled are all the same fraction. I could have made a test with 24 questions. I could have made a test with 20 questions. A test with 4 questions. I can simplify a lot of different ways. So I want you to kind of keep aware that like you can simplify fractions many different ways. I know it doesn't always have to be the same fraction every single time. So I said like there's different ways I can make tests so that you get the same scores and you have the same number of questions and you know that I'm testing over the same materials. So some people just don't understand that. Like, Ward, you need to make the test for more questions so I can get a better score. It doesn't matter. You're seeing that these tests are the same tests. You just have to display that you know what you're doing. But anyway, but that was the idea of simplifying fractions. So that's pretty easy. You guys feel comfortable with that stuff? Yeah, not too bad. Okay, let's do the second one. Let's do proportions now. I'm gonna move the camera on. let's go through the second type here. You gotta talk about proportion. Okay, so let's say we're doing a proportion with 2 and 7, and let's say that I have an x and a 20, let's go 28. Okay, alright, so we'll talk about this one. Okay, these are two different ratios being compared, correct? This is called a proportion. It's two different ratios set equal to each other. The goal here is to solve for the missing number that's on that problem. Okay, solve for the missing number. Now, here's how I want you to solve this proportion. Okay, there's two different methods, and this is what we're going to talk about. What was that?
I already know one.
Okay,
List.
so one of the methods. What is one of the methods?
Take the 7 times 28 and then divide.
Good. It's called the cross product. And you're absolutely right. That's exactly how you do it. So we're going to do a cross product. So that method requires you cross multiply and divide, just like you said. So you're going to cross multiply, because that's what cross product means. Cross multiply and divide. And divide.
So you're basically finding out as your percent.
So say it again.
Your percent.
Yeah, it's almost the exact same as finding a percent, but we're scaling these things. So the example I think I used on the video was maybe the recipe calls for 2 cups of flour and you make 7 pancakes. Well, you need to make 28 pancakes because maybe you have a bunch of people coming over, not just your family. So you need to scale up, so you got to figure out how much flour you need to use. So the flour's on the top, the pancakes are on the bottom, that type of thing. So if we cross multiply and divide, you start with the number above or below the x, you cross multiply, and then you divide. So you're right, 2 times 28, and divide by 7. Now, there's an easy way to divide. You could take the 28, break it up just like we did over here, and then see if anything crosses out. That's an easy way you can do this in your head without having to use a calculator. Like, look at your multiplication chart. What are numbers that multiply to give me 28?
4
times 7.
4 times 7. Well, when we get to this point, I can cross out the 7s. Because they're on top and bottom, like we did earlier, right? They had numbers in common. Well, what are you left with on the top?
8.
8, that's your answer. There's nothing left on the bottom, it's just a 1 down there. Your answer is 8. You need 8 cups of flour.
Oh
Not
wow.
a problem. Like, that's how easy it is. Now, that's one way. You can do a cross product. Again, most people just use a calculator, cross multiply and divide. Okay, or you can do this. This is called scalar multiplication.
Scalar multiplication.
Scalar multiplication. This is a way that some people actually see this problem a little bit differently, just because of the numbers themselves. Okay, so here's what I mean. On your multiplication chart, you just told me a little bit ago, what do you take times 7 to get 28?
4.
You took 7 times 4, right? Well, if you knew that's the number you had to multiply to make the 7 turn into a 28, you use that same number up top and you multiply by the same number. What's 2 times 4?
8.
And that's why the answer is 8.
I get it.
So I would always say that doing a cross product is probably the easiest way to do this. Okay? Alright, you guys feel comfortable? Okay, here's your homework today. And yes, you do have homework.
Yay.
When's it due?
Homework will be due Wednesday this week. Okay, let me
Okay, so
zoom
we get a
in.
day at least, or today and tomorrow to work on it. If we don't have it done by tomorrow.
Yep. Alright, here's your homework. Yeah, it's pretty easy. I didn't give you a lot of problems, I gave you 10 problems. It's simplifying fractions and doing proportions, which I think you guys could handle without me probably even telling you how to do it. Okay, and when you simplify, try to do it by hand. Try to show like what you're breaking down, like we did over here. Okay.
That's the one that we don't know how to do by hand. I mean, we probably.
The numbers will work. I picked really small numbers,
Okay.
so I didn't pick anything big. Page 124, numbers 1 through 5. It's only numbers on that page. And then page 128, numbers.
The camera's off now,
1
right?
through 5. No, camera's still on.
So I'm really behind it.
There you go. There you go. There's your
Any
homework.
eraser
Due
in
Wednesday.
there?
Yes.
My phone has the worst eraser. Oh, I see them right in there. Oh, chopsticks.
Alright, there you go. There's your homework. This will be due Wednesday.
Hello. Aye.
Okay, probably tomorrow we'll probably look at your test scores tomorrow, see what you got. The test we'll go over, you'll have 1 week from tomorrow if you choose to retake it. Okay?
We got it.
Alright, so there you go.